Sometimes it's people who are plunged into great difficulties and challenges who don't have the easy pathway or the clear formulaic pathway. It's not necessarily easy, but it's formulaic. You know exactly what you need to do when you need to do it. So it's just checking the boxes. May not always be easy, but it's clear what needs to be done. But it's the people that go through life without that clear pathway that sometimes have to interact with the real universe. And it may not be in that kind of challenge. Once it's overcome, then they end up bringing a completely different quality of leadership, insights, productive skills that from the process they really were challenged and learned by. But a society that says, oh, you're 25, you barely graduated high school, you never went to college, you're worthless. If that's the message that's sent, then, or go to college and just do what everyone says, and you're like, well, these people don't know what they're teaching. This is bogus. What am I doing? There's no quality of redemption, but you're also not rewarding that kind of creative impulse that doesn't just come through formal education. It comes through life experiences. You take someone like William McKinley or Ulysses S. Grant. Ulysses S. Grant was a retired soldier, but because he was able to be effective in the war, he rose to the level of general of the army. In real existential fights where survival is required, you look to the people that have that kind of moral leadership, that kind of insight, that kind of determination, and you elevate them. You scrap all the other so-called rules. Lincoln had all kinds of generals that went to West Point and were exactly what everybody in Washington said were the greatest generals. They consistently failed. You create that kind of shift in culture. And, then broad literacy. I mean, Frederick Douglass didn't read in Greek. He didn't read in Latin. It wasn't like he had it wasn't like he read every book ever, but there was an engagement with the mind that became an historical force. And that's what we're talking about, unleashing that kind of historical force in the minds of the American people. That's what Trump is calling for. That's what Trump has provoked from that kind of forgotten men and women. Not just that they're important and valuable, but that the way they think, their thoughts, their sense of direction is actually far better than a lot of the so-called experts.